Hello everyone, Bill Parish here from GTT Audio, and welcome to the channel today. Well, for those of you that are paying attention at all to high-end audio and where we're going as far as digital music's concerned, you've heard about network switches, which is what I have a couple of in front of us here. There's a lot of people, I'll probably come back to this, but there's a lot of people that want to stream in their high-end via Wi-Fi. Let me get this out of the gate right away. If you're streaming music via Wi-Fi, you are not in high-end music. It's that simple. I mean, there's so many problems with it. In fact, I'm going to link below on a recent video done by Chris Stevens over at DeJitter It, exactly some of the problems, and you can see on a graph the problems with Wi-Fi, and we'll talk about Wi-Fi in a little bit as well. But no, to send the packets of music, whether it's Cobuzz or if it's local files, whatever you're doing, if you're going to send that to your endpoint, assuming endpoint is a Rune language, but if you're running Rune, which I think most people are today, or if you're doing other type of stuff like DNLA server stuff, you're running stuff, you're running music data, your music files over the network, and you need to go through switches. And for many of you, this is extremely boring. And for many people, this will be extremely excited because they're starting to get their teeth into it. There's a lot of companies out there today that are making network switches. It's the new thing. And what they're doing, a lot of them, like here's a Netgear, here's a TP-Link, we have Cisco switches. They get these little switches and I don't know, they do something to them and then they sell them. And most of the time, they're selling them with the power supplies that come with it, which is pure and utter crap. Switch mode power supplies, wall warts, these things are, you can't have anything worse. All what they do is create noise. They radiate noise through the air. If it's in your audio room, they are filling the power that they deliver, the 12 or 24 volts that they deliver to the switches are filled with noise. It's terrible. So if you get rid of these things and you go out and you get yourself a linear power supply, you're already ahead of the game significantly. Now, I will say that all switches sound different. I will tell you that data run through this TP switch, even with the same power supply, and one run through this Netgear switch, sounds different. So how do you choose? And so there's a bunch of people out there. I think a lot of it is pure snake oil, selling these network switches, the audio files, and you can get one for a couple $100, or you can get it into the mega thousands. So it's which one do you choose? Who do you believe? What do you know? So I've been pushing, if you follow the channel, if you pay attention to what's going on out there, I've been talking about something called Apple TV X. And Apple TV X is the finest streaming device that you can get for video. And yet that could be improved if we could clean up the network. So Apple TV X's designer, Chris Stevens, who owns DeJitter It LLC, I've pushed him, and at the end of last year, he agreed to do a network switch. And when Chris tears into something, he tears into it. I'll just promise you that. We showed this. It's called Switch X, and I showed it at Expona. I talked about it a little bit at Expona. And what I'd like to do on this episode is unbox it and show it to you, and then talk a little more in depth about it. And if you don't follow along, because I mean, I'm not going to try to get complicated here, but you don't need to try to figure it out. You just do what we're going to show you to do here, and I promise you your sound will get significantly better, and I'll try to tell you why. But what we're going to do is, we've never done this before on the channel, is going to unbox a product right here, because of course we've been shipping them for a while, but I had the first one. It was me pushing Chris to do this, and so, you know, I get beta test ones and things that are, well, I've never opened one in an official box, so I'm doing that here for you to see. And it's well packaged here. He's got the switch. There, what else is in there? I guess there's a power cord in here. I don't recommend that you use it. It'll get your device turned on, but you know, we always recommend external power cords or aftermarket power cords. They always sound better. All right, there we go. So you get a beautiful linear power supply. You get this real nice switch here. Rack mount ears, if you want to rack mount it. No need to. A lot of you guys will be putting this into the hi-fi rack. All right, so first of all, let's talk about connections. Very simple. 4-pin. The 4-pin. Plug it in. Screw it in. Cable to the wall. Now, what do we connect in here? First of all, I don't know if you can see this on video, but it looks a lot different than that. These are RJ45 ports in my right hand, and what Switch X has is SFP ports, or SFP plus ports, which require a little module that looks like this. And there are a couple of different ones. Here is an S plus R J10, and then there's an SRJ01. Now the difference is our switch is future proof, meaning it'll do 10 gig. Most networks in the house are not 10 gig at this point. I mean, we've got internet providers at this point that the standard is 1 gig. There's a couple out there that are promising to do 2.5 gig. You know, maybe we'll get the 5 gig, but this switch will do 10 gig. Another important thing is this is not only a switch, it's also a router, but we'll get into that. So you have to figure out what your network is. What your network is at home. If it's if you have a 10 gig network and you're plugging into a 10 gig router, then you want to use a 10 gig SFP port. And if your module, and if you are using a 1 gig network or plugging in any audio device that's going to be a 1 gig, you're going to want to use a 1 gig SFP module. Now, one of the beauties about these modules is that all the electronics are in the module, where you get something like this, and all these devices are connected together inside on the board, where when you have, and all the electronics are right there, and you're getting all that noise, where when you get these beauties, each port, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's an 8-port. Each port has its own little ecosystem, and the network cable plugs into that. So I actually have a 10 gig network. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and on port 4. So port 4 and port 5 are closest to the chip, the absolute lowest noise on this. And I did say that this is also a router. So this runs a dirty network, clean network. And I'll get to that. But I'm going to take my 10 gig module and plug it into the fourth one. This is going to my router. And then I'm going to take the 5th port with a 1 gig module, and this is going to my Rune device, my nucleus, or actually in my case, my Grim MU1. And then I'm going to take another 1 gig module, and I'm going to plug that into, if I was doing Rune, then this would go into the Aries, all on this side. And then let's take it, say I have a NAS, and I have a 10 gig NAS, so I'm going to take a 10 gig port to my NAS. And then I need a unit for a wireless access point. There's so much to tell you about here. I don't even know if we can do it in one episode, but I'm going to plug that in, and that is a wireless access point. Now I still have 3 open ports. I can take those and plug them into anything I want, not as long as it's not on the audio side. You know, if this is boring you, stay with me. As Chris says right away on the very first page we pulled out, ooh, a fun new toy. Now what we have here is the last switch you'll ever buy. It's completely future-proof, and it's based off of a MikroTik switch, which is over in Eastern Europe. These things are beyond enterprise. They're ISP grade switches and routers. There is a router in here as well. This is some real high-tech stuff. And then, so Chris finds the best thing that he could possibly build upon, and then he does it. He's got big giant polypropylene caps in here. He's got ceramic caps in here. There's a lot of other technology I'm not going to tell you about. He's got some special regulators in there. Before we get back into this, just to look at the product. Here we've got these fins, heat sinks. You guys know what these are? There's no fan in here. It's no fan to make noise. Everything's about lowering noise. We've got a special, here's a little wing nut for grounding. We've got that taken care of. It's an incredible machine. What's inside of this is even more incredible. With Chris's mods, he's taken the, he's lowered the noise in there by 30 dB. It's, when you hear I don't care how good your streaming sounds, when you hear it through this, you're like, it's okay. You hear it with a external power supply, it gets better. You go out and you get another aftermarket switch, it gets better. You go out like I did and have a couple $1,000 clock put inside my switch, it gets better. Nothing's as good as this. And another thing is people are now clocking their switches, and we know all about that. And Chris says that he can control, and the clocks that he's putting inside the switch are much better, much more accurate, much more stable than any external clock. And I'll just tell you this, because I've messed around with external clocks before in the audio arena, is clocking cables make a difference. So you can have the world's greatest external clock, and if you use the wrong cable, even a power cord on a clock makes a difference. There's too many different influences. So we're giving you a very compact package. So I've talked about clean network, dirty network, router switch. What he's done here, let's not even worry about router switch. What he's done here is he's divided this in half, and 4 ports see your whole home. And then there's a brick wall. And then there's these 4 ports over here that are only seeing the audio system. And why you want to do that is everything that's on your network, your Crestron, your remotes, your lights, your other audio devices, your computers, your iPhones, you name it, they're sitting there pinging, pinging, pinging. Several times per second, they're pinging the network. They're saying, hey, I'm here. That's how they're on. And all that over all the lines ends up creating all sorts of noise. And it's just havoc on what it does. If you go to the DeJitter website, DeJitterit.com, DeJitteret.com, we'll link it below, you can see graphs, and you can see what has happened to the noise and what is transpired here. All right, so you don't want your audio system seeing the rest of the house. You want a complete brick wall there, and he's done that. This is the same as, your network is not seeing your neighbors, but you guys are coming off the same line on the street. Well, that's what he's doing here. You're coming into the household on the same line, which ends up being this port, but these ports are completely isolated from this port. So again, all right, let's talk worst case scenario. Oh, and by the way, if you have some sort of unique situation and you need more than 4 ports on the clean side, no problem. This is completely configurable. We could roll a custom one for you. And I should say, obviously, I am selling this worldwide distributor of this unit. So, port 4 is to the house. That gets us the internet. Port 5, let's say, is your room. Port 6 is your streamer. Port 7 is your NAS. And port 8 is your wireless access point. Why do you need a wireless access point? You already have Wi-Fi in your house, right? Yes, you do, but what you have is you have Wi-Fi on this dirty side, on the rest of the house. And this is, again, I told you, a brick wall. So we need Wi-Fi to be able to control the room on port 5. So port 8 has to talk to port 5. Now, there's all sorts of Wi-Fi access points out there. There's Eero, there's Ubiquity, there's Orbi, there's TP-Link, Netgear. Well, Netgear is Orbi. There's all these things. They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. And when I say that, what I mean is they emit a ton of noise, RF noise. They're sitting there. If you have one next to your rack, if they have it in your room, they are blasting your room with noise. Now, on multiple occasions, I've had clients that have had it in the room or in the next to the rack, and it's blasting it with noise. It's got to be affecting the sound, and you absolutely hear it when you turn on the phono. Turn on the phono stage, And the phono, you know, is got this huge amplification factor going on and just sits there and picks it up. And you hear all this chattering and all this noise coming through the speakers, and it's all RF that's being absorbed based off of horrible access points right there at the rack, and the phono stage is able to tell you what's going on. Believe me, on your digital inputs, it's happening as well. You maybe don't hear it as prominently, or it's not telling on itself, but it is hurting your sound. So you do not want one of these wireless access points in your audio room of the brands I just mentioned. So then what else is there? Well, there's a company, it's Hewlett-Packard Enterprise company called Aruba. And we're going to show you, I'm going to link to some videos below on some tests on that. But we take an Aruba piece, and it's this thing. Well, I'm going to just link to some videos because I don't want to take too much time. But you can check out the Aruba. We're not doing a lot of modifications to the Aruba, but it's completely configurable, and it's the best device for audio for Wi-Fi. We sell it pre-programmed for audio. There's no RF coming out. It's only the Wi-Fi coming out. It's way out of the audio bandwidth. And you take that and you plug it in with an Ethernet cable on port 8 there. You take the linear power supply, plug it into the unit. It comes on, it works, and it does not interfere with your audio. Again, this is what the DOJ uses. This is what the military uses. This is what courthouses use. This is the NSA uses Aruba. In any sensitive area, Aruba's the best of the best as far as Wi-Fi for security. But it is also a piece that is built mil spec. Now these an Aero, an Orbi. Ubiquity, you pick these things up for $200, right? Well, this was like $3,000. So there's a bit of a difference there. But we're not, you don't need to buy a brand new one. We're buying older ones, refurbing it. Again, this is strictly for audio use. It'll still pass a gig, but it's for your iPad to talk to the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi to send signals inside the switch and transmit the command to Roon. That's what it's for. So that's why you have to have a wireless access point. And to have a wireless access point, and if you're going to do it in the audio room, Aruba is the only way to go. In fact, so I've deployed it throughout my entire place because I don't want all this RF being broadcast all around me. In any case, we're the worldwide distributor of these. We're packaging Aruba switches with the linear power supply to those people that get Switch X. There's so many mods in here. The clocks, every channel, every single port is DeJittered, and it's measurable. No fans. It's a router and it's a switch. There's a company out there that just made a switch, and yeah, they were pretty good as far as finally someone else gave you something with SFP ports and SFP modules. This is also, just by itself, this is a much better way to go than something like this. And but now they're going to come out with a router. This is a nice steel chassis. It blocks RF. It's a Faraday cage around what's in there. It's not letting noise come in. It's not letting noise come out. You know, other people are making things out of copper. Not a great idea. Talk about reflecting RF. It's not great. Listen, there's a bunch of instructions here on the basics of Switch X, and then there's a detailed diagram of just everything I've said here. And it talks about existing house network and then isolated network over here. Oh, and I must mention, I'm talking audio. Huge improvements on the Apple TV X as well. We've taken the best video streaming source ever produced and improved it by running it through a Switch X, which, you know, if you're doing that and you want to use the remote and you don't care about Wi-Fi to your Apple TV, I mean, this is quite simple if you're just doing that. Actually, yeah, give me the one. There it is. Existing home network, Apple TV. Linear power supply, use an aftermarket power cord. Of course, we recommend Kabbalah Sosna research. And boom, you've got, we just made Apple TV X even better. Guys, I know you're going to have a lot of questions. Give me a call, email me. My information's below. And but hopefully this, for those that are wondering about switches, hopefully you'll investigate this more, make a decision to go with this. We feel it's the best. For those that are playing around with something like this, there's a lot better out there. For those buying some of these other aftermarket things where people are taking things like this and putting it in a pretty chassis, well, this is, they're snake oil. They're snake oil salesmen is what they're doing. I know people that are taking Buffalo switches and putting them in fancy cases and charging a couple $1,000s. Everything here is real technology. I should also say that like the Apple TV X, the linear power supply has noise sensing and noise canceling technology in there. It's a 4-pin. All 4 pins are connected. You've got 2 for the DC input and 2 for the noise sensing. And so this is monitoring this in real time. If it detects any noise, it squashes it and keeps it low. Noise inside audio components, inside switches, is everything. Everything. Power supply is everything. Power supply is all about the noise. The difference in when companies build product A, B, C, and D, A being the best, or D in this case as I went uphill, D being the best and A being the entry level, the difference between D and A is usually the power supply. And what power supplies are there to eliminate noise. So this is doing this real time, monitoring it with sensing, and then there's a ton of mods in here. There's a ton of components that have been swapped out for super high-end stuff that gets the results that you can see on the website. All right, so a little bit different type of video this time. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.